her while she's walking around. So thank you for coming. This is our second series in the Essential Skills for a Real World Career series that the Student Senate is doing in collaboration with the Professional Development Center. And today we're lucky to have Linda Brandt, who works for Hennepin Health Promotion, and she works with people all over the Twin Cities Metro and implementing health promotion initiatives, organizations, and communities. In her spare time, she's founded Lean In groups and networks in relation to Sheryl Sandberg's book Lean In, Twin Cities Metro, and I think that she'll probably be talking a little bit about that today. I'm going to hand over to her and let her discuss this. We're lucky to have her here, and I think a small group will actually be really fruitful for our discussion. So without further ado, here's Linda.
Hello. This is my chance to stand up in front of you, so I'm going to go for it. Thank you for coming into this building. I really appreciate it, and for coming to the network. I'm honored by Christian of School Student Senate and Dick, Director of the School Career Professional Development, to present the second event, as Christian said, Essential Skills for the Real World Career. So these two right here, Kristen and Dick, are awesome. I haven't met him. He seems great too. So I'm a school public health graduate, and my job is I promote healthy workplaces in Henry, which is now. And I really enjoy it. Outside of work, I do leadership development as a volunteer. And the reason is that in the last 2.5 years, I've used both community and health to build a community around myself. Started off as just 12 people, now and it's amazing, actually really amazing. I benefits from developing a network of people around me, both personal and professional. And you might be surprised by what some of them have been. What I make of your time here today is not only in hands-on activity, but share some stories and insights to inspire you to grow your professional network and 3 elements: passion, vulnerability, and commitment. So that's all that. My topic. So I'm going to actively involve. It's more fun that way. It seems kind of stand if you Sheryl Sandberg, the COO of Facebook. All right, and big power pose, just to seal the deal. And then raise your hand if you've heard her speak either at a TED Talk or read her book or anything like that. The book prop for you. Very good. Sit down. Public platform as a Facebook executive to say, here's how she says it: men still, and it's not going very well. So is that we could use more inclusive in general. Great. Why she wrote the book. She said, I want to support women to lead into leadership, and if leadership isn't your bag, to have a profound influence in the world, no matter what that looks like for you. So I'm thinking, well, what role can that? And Sheryl Sandberg and the Lean In movement really encourages men to lean into both caregiving and support gender equity in big and small. So my circle includes both men and women, and just this morning, former Marine drill sergeant Henry said to me, if Lean In were a stock, he would buy it. And I was like, all right, well, the Lean In movement is looking at that range of people. Did you have a question? I knew the public health person that they were being helpful. Is that better? Or a lot better? Thank you. I knew she wasn't just saying, hey, what's this about? Oh, that's great. So I'm referring to and commitment are 3 things that I'm kind of something for you to think about. So just years ago came to my house. So that this billionaire showed up at my house for my lean-in circle. Well, I basically built a network around me using these three elements. And that's why I sort of want to include not just building your professional network, but building your professional network with love. Of course, since we are students and thinkers, we want to define our terms. What is love? Psychologist Robert Sternberg says that love has three components: intimacy and commitment. And for the sake of it, I've turned intimacy into love, just as easier to operationalize. That cover the concept of love for you, those three elements here, kind of covers it. Passion, vulnerability, commitment. Okay, so he made that. Is something worth your time, which of course you probably don't because you're in public health. McDonald's has been using the marketing slogan, "I'm loving it," for 12 globally. So this is an idea that I think you can take. If you grab onto this idea of love is these three: vulnerability and commitment, you want some way to remember that. And so, who's familiar with C pipes? Yeah, okay. For a thing that to other people, passion, vulnerability, and commitment. So my mentor, who introduced me to this idea of passion, vulnerability, is love. And he founded a nonprofit in Milwaukee called Diverse and Resilient. And their goal is to address health disparities among LGBT Wisconsinites. What I'm is passion and commitment as a community that I've used, and I encourage you to use as well. So, of course, really take it about each of the three elements, starting with passion. So, who here has lots of passions? Yeah, okay. So, and who would say that those passions expanded your world and brought you closer to more people? What may be more important these days is that your passion is what's memorable to people. The thing that you talked about that they hadn't heard about lately, you're like, oh yeah, she's a lead-in group that she's so excited about, and years as a volunteer, like just making that happen. So what you do is pair up with one another, and what's your name, and then say your name again, just because it's a good habit. So if you could find that you don't know, and most eager to talk or is not eating at the moment, can answer. I will give you, I don't know, like 40 seconds or so. I'll switch. Tell them what you're passionate about. And, all right, go. I guess first. Be a certain. Switch to the second person. Switch to the second person. Up if you're Ready, done? Actually, tap your finger if you can hear me. Tap if you can hear me. And if you can hear me. Okay. All right. Bring it back together. So raise your hand if you met somebody cool during that time. Okay. So one of the main recommendations that I took from Lean In, this book, it really with me, is that mentoring is not something that you sign up for. It's something that you earn through doing cool stuff. So it would be the case that showing your passion connects you and want to cheer you on. So on a basis, when I'm helping someone or they're helping me, it's usually because we found each other, because we like said, you're doing great stuff. I want to support you. So even in a format mentoring program, I would really try to make it as reciprocal as possible. Now, one of the ways I've earned mentoring is here. I was doing push-ups. I was doing training for a lot of years by myself. One day, suddenly I have this push-up partner, Scott, at the Y. And he's not only like salt-of-the-earth guy, but he's also Dr. Scott Davies, Chief of Medicine at Hennepin County Medical Center. Chats about public health and Lean In, of course. He's going to do 1,000 push-ups with him, definitely on those, lots of steps. I challenged him, hey, Scott, like, why don't you Facebook so I can connect you to my cool friends? So he sort of, from like having the consistent somebody and having another person who's into health. It's great to meet people as your passions. So if people have heard of the phrase big, audacious goals. Okay, well, I'll pass on something new to you. So from the book Built to Last, which is a business book, and very audacious goals, or BHAGs, are goals to catalyze team spirit and have a line. So it used to be like moon landing. The city of Minneapolis and Hennepin County have a goal of ending homelessness. And for veterans, homeless veterans were scheduled this year. Actually, they're pretty well at. This organization, Lean In, that I'm part of as a volunteer, their goal, half of organizations are led by women and half homes are led by men. And that's a BHAG. That's a audacious, hairy goal. And I, public health, we could use that concept because we want big changes for the most part. We don't want small incremental changes. We want to see really big things happen. So the first element is know what you're passionate about, like you shared with someone. Don't play safe. Know what you have, some big, hairy, audacious goals. And if you're passionately about things, it gives you a place to connect with people. You'll stand out. Remember you. They're like, oh yeah, she had all that energy and that purpose. And that's really important if you want a network where you are sort of getting all the time you're putting into it. So the very last thing is the looks like this. And this is such a great, quick and dirty, what's great about you. And if I ever ask you for a recommendation, you just send a copy of this. It's free on the internet. And say, can you tell what's great about you? And I'll be able to tell them specifically what's great about you. And asking for a recommendation, if you fill it out, you'll give people all the information they need to know about what you're passionate about. So today, I would really want you to know that I can't send you a job announcement unless I remember who you are. So it's good to show energy, don't be bland, really, risk passions. I brought this sign, proceed and be bold, which is, I think more of these days. So as I went to people for input into this talk, a lot of them pointed me toward a book called Give and Take by Adam Grant. And he, in this book, that really builds a network, builders and matchers. So if you're from a place of passion, I think you're more likely to be a giver and a matcher. So basically to give at the same level that other people are giving. So, but I'd also say, one of the things he says is be a connector. Be a giver who takes a few minutes to say, hey, you should meet Kristen. hey, Vic, you are both doing the same work. So that's a few minutes to do. And this is a stylist, fashion for movies and ads. I often introduce her to people because she's not only generous, definitely a giver. She will tell you, hey, like things like give out her fashion advice, like, hey, this jacket, which is for me, you laugh and smile, so get it. Like she's not hold back with her advice. It's like, dude. So we met at Izzy's Ice Cream. We sat down at my table. So she's the kind of person that sits down at your table, like, oh, I think I'll sit down here with you. And bold enough to go to my car, get my card, and hand it to her. So I think it's you don't know where you're going to meet people who can make a difference in your life. So bold risks is what I'm saying. So the idea that this billionaire, Sheryl Sandberg, came to my house. Here's a picture of what it was like. And partly because I had grown this network, but that made kind of the chain of events of her coming. And one, I got from the Associated Press, hey, can we talk to you about your Lean Circle? And I thought, I'm in a program. Of course I have to say yes. This is like kind of a no-brainer there. So it did take some courage to go public with my story. Advice that Sheryl Sandberg often suggests. You don't ask what seat, you go on. And that's this Associated Press article is soon a local group said, hey, let's collaborate. So it's particularly timely for tomorrow's day that know that when an organization like Lean In is reaching out, they want to know who the people are connected. So I had the courage to talk to the media, but to make sure I built a solid relationship with local circles. I could have easily have come into a bigger than my house. The group was already too big for my house. It was like stuffed to the gills. I pushed all the furniture out. It was completely crazy. My house is that I was very public about my story, which is, this is a screenshot of my dog Mac. He's kind of become a mascot. And story go public right around that same time caused the people at Lean In to say, oh, it sounds like in your story that you're in community because you want to have people in your home. You want to have connections in your neighborhood. So you got to have it at your home. So that's kind of how it came out there is I was sharing a little personal information about myself than is typical at my job at Hennepin County. Like, not really out too much there. But because this is a volunteer thing and because we know that there's a personal, people kind of, oh, you're doing this because you want to do this. That's what I'm getting at. So once I was coming, I got on the phone and I called no less than 100 people. I know we're not texting, but I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. And I for all of you by going after your passions that they're so exciting that you will like go out of your way to stop by, knock on their door and say, oh my God, this is happening. I can't believe it. And it's worth doing things that are so you just like, oh my God, like we'll have to at least video Skype so you can see how crazy this is. The personal stuff to the second piece, which is vulnerability. As you likely know, is what happens when you're open and real self. And Brene, she says that vulnerability is the glue that holds intimate relationships together. So who is Brene Brown? Only a few of us. Brene has a 2010 TEDx talk called The Power of Vulnerability. She's a research professor. Her talk is one of the most followed TED Talks. It's definitely worth your time. And on the handout of resources, I list that talk, but also a really short YouTube that's will kind of get you a picture of what I'm talking about. Brown she kind of brought up that people hadn't been talking about vulnerability. Because the first thing that I look for, and that all of us look for when we meet someone, is their vulnerability. But the last thing that we want to show other people. So it's the first part, but it's the last thing we want to show. So we're this interesting dynamic of we need relationships, but talk about commitment. People don't show much vulnerability. You know, it's like, I'm not sure about that. It can be perceived as a weakness. If you come and people are like, no, that's just like you should be more prepared. You know, so it eats you up when you say, you know, I have a migraine and I'm still doing it. You know, it's just like show the things that we sometimes hide because we're not sure how people are going to perceive it. So part of what we can do, you can take the mental health angle, but like what's really going on with ourselves. Risk being vulnerable. And you obviously have to trust people. So it's part of vulnerability. I'll go about that more in the piece on commitment. To getting actively involved, let's dip our to vulnerability. So think about your answer to this question. You weren't afraid. Circulate it around to everybody, every Sharpie. Most people. So once you have your answer, I would the card that says you weren't afraid. And write the vulnerability piece. Will write your name or maybe your Twitter handle if that's more how you see you. So take your answer. Overthink it. Your first fine. And I'll give you 30 seconds or so, unless you don't have a Sharpie. Write it down. Maybe use the paper by your face, so I can see who's ready. Anywhere that you are close. Be vulnerable. All right, Vic, first photo out. I haven't told have the exciting answers. We'll be able to get your answers in. So hopefully to be public with them. Put it by your face. Having to say it. Use it as vulnerable, but we'll still get the gist of it. If you're not ready. We're so all right. I had done myself. So there was a big push to answer this question and to post it online on a Tumblr. My group did. It's called "If You Weren't Afraid." It still exists. It's active. And it turns out if you post stuff on Tumblr, it can be picked up anywhere. It was this picture printed in a British newspaper. And I was like, well, I don't really know about that because a woman is holding her answer next to a British paper, which was it. So, of course, to be vulnerable. It's also great to be smart, and there is no eraser on the internet, so keep that in mind. Make sure you're posting things that you feel good. Of course, I want to talk concretely. How do you really show up in the right relationships? So I've pushed myself to to reach out to people that I admire or I feel intimidated by. And to say, of everything that I've done, that's the most useful thing. The reward out to people who intimidate me has been far-reaching and just so. And if you've reached out to someone in the last year you admire, who was kind of a stranger, okay, can we have a round of applause for those people? Role models? Very good. For those who, anyone who's willing to say they will start doing that, reach out to people you admire. Like, that's good. Contemplation mode. That's good. We've got for you just talk to people. So I'm going to give you a quick story. In 2013, I wrote an essay in the Minnesota Women's Press about the politics of respectability. And Professor and Chair of American Studies at Macalester College, Duchess Harris, shown here. And since my education here at the university, I didn't know I had never visited, or maybe went there for some music once. So I looked at a lot of online videos. Really, I mean, it was so accessible and interesting. I was like, someone knows stuff. So what the heck? I'll not only contact her, I'll say, hey, I really use you in my leadership circle. And so when he did join my group, oh my God. So I started to cry. Actually thinking about it, it's just like, when you ask yourself like that, you are being very vulnerable. And it's just amazing the benefits you can get. So from that time, just like her essay, she was very accessible. She's a book for young people, Black Lives Matter. There's been a lot of press around. And we've got a book at our local Lean-In conference to say she's going to receive the Courage Award from the Black Lawyers Association soon. So good. This one was amazing. And gems like that who I can reach out to. So in that situation, it's a calculated risk. It's not as big as it may seem. And all I say is, no, I'm too busy, go away. But what I'm saying is be the first to show vulnerability. And of course, you should try to make a good impression. Like, use people's style, ask meaningful questions, say, who else should I meet? Because grant of give and take, he says that people who are givers, they want to open doors. They connect you with other people. So I think that's a pretty safe assumption that in the conversation you can say, who should I meet? Who else is worth knowing? And I came across a South African entrepreneur, Nick Harlem Boos, who said, and I like this quote, a few people in your life, find them. So to find them. So reaching out to people matter. Vulnerability. Talk about that matter to you and to other people. Skip. Be about building relationships with people who are different from you and feels comfortable. So, risk again getting rejected. On the point of talking about important things, I'm kind of for this. I'm not only am I direct, but I kind of know what's really going on with people. So I had a colleague of mine, Selena Fremark. She worked at the county, Washington County, over the years I had the county. I've been there 8 years. And why do I not get to know this cool person? I only see her trainings. I kind of how excited she is about life. Instead of a walk and talk, typical, we're walking around Lake Calhoun, passionate about, and she says she wants to be a midwife to the dying. And I exactly where I was, by what tree, by when I was like, So last my dad and my mom, my dad was in hospice. It's of course, Selena. It didn't come to mind. So what was happening at the time? My dad was dying of cancer, and so after 5 months of trying to keep him alive, so people are saying, "Oh, this is things here. We do things very." I'm like, "We are not moved for this. We're not moved for this culture change that you're trying to." So I called Selena, and it's amazing how someone who's a mid-dying can cut all of your confusion and say, okay, here's how they do things in hospice. You'll need to know this. This is how to respond to this. That doesn't make sense to you. This is that you need in order to things for your family. So it was that I had that conversation because then I was nobody else I knew. So then a few things. Selena says, I'm applying for a job. She was currently in works at health promotion to do a full-time job. That's her reference. She got the job. Now she's the head of hospice for North Memorial, which is actually where my dad was in the hospice 6 months and then where he died. So this is a small town, and you could soon be key players in the game, especially if you talk about important stuff. Who here are across difference? Who has friends who are pretty different from themselves? Again, the room of people who do that. And I've seen that make a difference are culture, gender, socioeconomic status, beliefs, profession, anything that you find is important. Evelyn in the green is the person in my life who I have regular contact with. She's an old housekeeper and food co-op worker in Grand Forks, North Dakota. She's the person that I Skyped with, the longest and the hardest with. She's pretty silly, actually. And so I think a lot of people don't usually have that big a gap unless the person's in their family. I encourage you to think of not who can be a little more persistent, but older people as well. So the 7th to 10th grade girls, they're a group Lean Circle works with called Girls United, and Jessica is this amazing 8th grader, future geologist, and has basically enter school. And so I was like, I'm in my plan to help girly group, but how can I not support somebody who's so passionate and about her experience? But she contacted the Lean Foundation. The Lean Foundation didn't even know we were in the same state and said, hey, you're helping people. Can you help this young person? So I did. People who are in the room who are white, like myself, or privileged in some other way, I really stress that people make mistakes with people who are different from them, and a lot of shyness. There is just so much. It's like totally rampant here, and it really doesn't help that we have a kind of a racial and economic segregation going on, so people don't have a lot of contact. So what if you're in groups, really put in places where you're in the minority culturally, because you bump into stuff and lots of mistakes, you will like, oh, this is how things work. Or I mean, in either way, if you're not ready to on the street, so take the 21A and put yourself in a different situation. You can also just read the Hmong Times or the Circle, like community papers you can pick up and kind of get the inside scoop of events. Segregated, where you can easily be in the minority in the Twin Cities. So I just throw that in there concretely. Put yourself there in places where you don't know the rules, and you make it. It will totally be worth it. And so you may already do this. I find that, like as you saw my example of big, hairy, audacious goals, the circle is a good place to get ideas. Work in other worlds kind of cuts down some of the language barrier. As you're talking to people who are like, what are you talking about with your public health lingo? So that's more of the language that they use. Like, for example, in computer architecture. I'm like, I live with an architect. It's like, what are you talking about? So I think help for public health to really have the big impact that we want to have. Another in public health, my friend Jeff, who is a local writer, said, read the business section. Most information about how the world works, and they talk about power relationships in the business section. So if you're not in the section or on paper, I would say start it. So already reads the business section. Anyone? That's it. You're how directly talk about people, and I mean there's no like nice in that section of your choice. They just cut right to it, right? It's just here's numbers, here's like, I mean, people are, yeah, it's very from public health. So I would definitely encourage you to do that. Okay, vulnerable. Help. So if you don't already cheering you on, anything, take a project, start a track of who is cheering you on, because like recently Bush Fellowship, 40 different people either read or gave proof responses. Now you have to sort of cultivate that group where they're going to be like, what, read these essays? No, I'm not going to. So think about of some sort when you have a project that you care about and you need support. It might be Facebook updates, tweets, holiday letters. Stay in touch with people so that when they have a need to get help, they're not, who are you? And just as important as having that kind of cheering section or board of advisors is all you consult with. So I was going to come to Hamburg. I ended up all these phone calls and that phone call for with people. One was Yolanda, who said, "Oh, Cheryl's coming to your living room. I see you in her living room." And I'm like, Cheryl's doing a book tour, not a book tour. She's doing a tour. She's here for the Grace Hopper Institute. She has a reason. She has like a strategic plan. Why be in her house? Like, that doesn't make any sense. That's never going to happen. Like, no. Last summer, I was in Cheryl's living room. You can think, because even saying that, I was like, oh, I better like take myself more seriously because someone sees something that I can't see. Very important. Alexis, he's a filmmaker, Alexis Van Herkman, and when he heard that I was going to meet with, had a chance, he had advice I've never heard before, which is if you meet a need, they can grant your have to, but you have them ready. So, or if you have a chance to meet a genie, what do you ask for? Right? I'm not just going to like ask for a job. Hey, can I have a job at Facebook, or can I work for your foundation? No, I want an ongoing relationship with this woman because there's more opportunities for wishes. So I would have ever have thought of like, oh, this is a big opportunity. That woman, the housekeeper in North Dakota, she said, well, you got to start writing updates. You build a relationship with her, so she's doing. So of course, they're writing these updates. They're much bigger lead-in circles than my own, but they're updates. They don't share what they're doing. They're not building that relationship with both Cheryl and her lead-in foundation. So people is really comes from being vulnerable. I really care about. I want your help with this. Commitments. One. So honestly, it's a little thing, but I live and breathe commitment. I didn't even imagine just a short time. No, like if it's worth doing, like let's like make a big plan. So it's me with a group that I walked a marathon with, and so far I've walked 16 marathons. I'm trying to give you a picture of like one take a long time, and that's like kind of how my brain works. Was when I started as a public health student in 2000, and so hey, I want to do a marathon. I said, well, do you need to run it? You know, because I'm going to take about 6 hours. Let's do it. So it's a marathon. Lake Duluth actually is really great. This one's in Duluth. Like marathon in 8 hours. I'm like, an extra 2 hours of like, you know, running it. So it's hard on your knees and your back. So I've done various cities as well. You could definitely ask me about that if you're ever interested. I've also been since I was 12. I've been lifting weights for 2 decades. I was married for 20 years. I've been part of for all my adult life. So commitment is pretty much, yeah, okay. In fact, I'll probably be doing in some form or other time as well. Public health. I mean, health for all. I mean, would that not be a lifetime commitment? That's like, you can't do health. Redwood tree. So I booster rocket behind vulnerability and them. And of course, here in the U.S., commitment, we just like, whatever, who cares? It's like, no big deal. It doesn't get much respect. Just like, it's not sexy. It's just not. commitments. But what's interesting is if you do it with a purpose and a mission. So is what's important. So one tattoo, who cares? That's no longer a big deal. But if you design, or if you go to and you have a lot of tattoos, yeah, people make a lot of commitments or commitments. Have been tested over time. So over time, you kind of capable. So just, I'm in the gym lifting heavy weights, and this guy who I don't know says, "Wow, that's a lot of weight. Are you sure that's safe?" Let's see. Heavy weights. Yeah, I think it's safe. Or you did, like I mentioned, have done do 1,000 push-ups. People will say, "Now, partner Scott," they will say to me, "Have you hurt yourself?" I'm like, actually, I'm pretty sure. I'm very confident that it's safe. Similarly, if commitment is important in relationships because people will trust you. Okay, you stuck with that project, you stuck with that passion, that career, and you've got the interesting part, and they trust in you. The thing you should need to stay at a job you hate. You show your commitment to the field. You show your commitment, period, and that will garner respect. So, who here has around a redwood tree? These really big trees. About half of us. There's something really great waiting for you. These are those people who could just feel the energy of those trees. Yeah. Like even a person like me, you can just feel it. Like, whoa. And it's not just like a big bridge, like the hydrogen St. Paul. It's like, well, it's similar, but go for the trees, I think. When I was in California this summer, and I met these women, they're lean-in leaders from Beijing. I felt that what they were saying, they were jet lagged. They had just gotten here. And my own other experience in life is those redwood trees. This is pretty strange. Who felt the same was Sheryl Sandberg, who was saying, when I met them, this is definitely what I need to be doing with my life. So now is their commitment. Not purpose, but their commitment. These women are committed to bringing their communities forward. I talk about political repression, but I think that's part of it as well. Their commitment has been tested. So to women's leadership, Hennepin County workplace, saying, I weren't afraid I'd be silly. I'm obviously committed to being a little more silly than I am. Those commitments, so I'm going to take the blue piece of paper that's and write down what you're committed to. So, might be professional. Write down on that blue piece of paper, the blank one, and committed to. Just make a list. What are you committed to? What are things that you are willing to invest your time, your energy, willing to be vulnerable around? What are you committed to? And then, there should have a blank one. Okay. You should that you made that you're the most committed to. Like the one you're going to, as we did before, write down and share it with other people. What that you're committed to. That Sharpie in. Write that. And then if you down at the bottom, that would be great too. What are you committed to? just one thing that you're committed to. Even for gold medal, but what's the thing you want to get a medal for one day? Like you're proud of your involvement with. All right, and paper, you could put it by your face, and Vic and I will snap a photo of you with your one. Right. And this is Hannah told me was the most important one. So you guys are hold it up. Oh, put it on the cardstock if you can. Okay, cool. You gotta try stuff. So I'm of leaders with love, and obviously PVC love, passion, and commitment. All right. So how can you have commitments unless you share them? Put it on your email signature line. I do that. You might put it on your LinkedIn profile there. I was asking you, like, here's your little time to advertise. Your Facebook, Twitter, all those opportunities to say what you stand for. Here's another thing that I figured out. You don't hear a lot of this, but I think you commitment. So if you use Facebook, instead of liking things, commit comments. Just waste. It's a waste of your time. It just makes you. It like feeds you a little rabbit. Like no, don't do that. Like write a commitment, even if you just say love it or whatever you say something, because you will be amazed how people then respond to you. Because you're not just a liker. You're a person who makes a commitment. Said, I care or my some comment about you. That's one thing. How about who has heard of Humans of New York? Okay. So an example of a picture plus a story, and then people write amazingly clever comments. So if you need hints on how to write clever comments, right there is your source, Humans of New York. So and speaking of social media, who here enjoys LinkedIn? Okay, people enjoy. Okay, so I many years it was boring, and we could just put stupid. Turns out, friends, Kelly and Mary love it, and I was like love it. Because I know these women, and they're not boring or so I thought something's going on here. So what it is, just like with Twitter or anything else, the more it makes sense. And our article locally went from like 400 people to a full using LinkedIn. Because LinkedIn, of course, is low maintenance. And come in with more commitment than the person who's like, basically, I'll join your group. Come in with your commitment and in a more broad range of people. Because you're a bit. So I would say that positive feedback from someone. They say it in person or they say it in email. That's an opportunity for you to say, hey, Chris, would you be willing to post my LinkedIn profile? And if they're willing to post it, suddenly you have these sort of recommendations that make your profile out because these people are committed to you enough to post, a recommendation like similar like, oh yeah, I heard public speaking, or I recommend this. So that people can show commitment. People who actually show up and do the work show commitment. Notes, set up or take down, show for people who get the work done. And like I've seen it through building the Lean Circle, the people who show up and do stuff, those are the people you remember. They're like, oh, there's that person who, follows and help with something. So be the person who gives, or don't. Sort of like, don't go for that in between. Really commit, or don't bother. Is kind of my attitude. So when you do meet people, you should write down key facts about them. Now that seems a little compulsive, even for me, but people do that. key facts, like this is the name of the child, this is the name, this is their recent travel to someplace. Okay, it seems, but just tell them what you actually want to know about them. Oh, he or she has an interest in this. I'm interested. We didn't have time to get to that. Maybe write that down. Australian friend Jacqueline says, practicing as if it will save your life. And there's a way that I think kind of the heart of it. You're showing that you were listening. And by taking the note, you're like, my memory's not great, but so the note has some key points at the top. Then just to make connections. And I encourage you to check out some of those places. Let's see what's on this list. Okay, so health and the creativity should be like this in my mind. They are doing lots of stuff that impacts people's health. They know how to. So if you check out the Creative Morning website, you'll see others right there. There are people who can come to hosting. Let's see. There's something called. There's also a Women in Public Service. There's the book has a regional networking event each year. So all things that enrich the public health field. A blog called 365 Days of Networking, local career counselor, who meet people just locally that you may not have thought about. And when you do, you want to have some cool business cards or personal cards. So I use Moo, M-O-O. I think it's great. You can get a whole slew of photos or photos that you like. You're excited to hand to somebody. And it's a little odd. People don't always do that. But I'm always surprised, like, how much people will follow up with me when I do have a card. I'll go, I'm not one of those introverts, not exactly an extrovert, not an introvert. I will meet people on the street, on the light rail, hanging out there, playing, having that and handing it to them sort of tells them you're worth staying in touch with. Like, you have something, you're kind of even giving them something. My business card, I'll say, in case you meet someone who's interested in public health, here's my card. So, like, you're probably going to know some young person who wants to go fix something in the world related to health. Here you go. I'm happy to talk to them. And I've heard this, and it's really sort of a generational thing, to send written notes in the last week. Okay, that seems crazy, but people still do that. So consider being the person who stands out for putting stuff in the mail. And then, stuff away as well. Sending a card. I live by a card shop, so it's sort of easy. But so you will, because we're an aging society, there's going to be a lot of death. So you'll have lots of, you'll buy a slew of them. Plus, people are now sending cards for dogs. So I'll need some of those as well. People, world. Let's see. I would say, okay, this is the part of myself to show you. Okay, you apply for, you're going to need tape. So you may need where you'll have to really stand out there. And because there's a lot of kind of passivity these days, and you really do have to be the person who gets stuff done. And as I was asking about this talk, they said, build trust. Build trust, build trust, build. How do you do that? You follow through. You do hard things. You can't do what you said you could do. You are. So I who wanted to tour this building, I know somebody who worked there. And so I said, hey, person that's going to be in your town, can she come tour your building? And right away, the person said, I make that happen. And That's an action hero response. That's who gets stuff. I never hear language like that. So if you can say things like, I will make that happen, I will get that done, that's kind of amazing. So even for someone who makes commitment easily, like the next step is to renew commitments. So the thing you've been doing, you could consider, hey, do I want to keep doing that? Is that still working for me? And the message about earlier, Gary, who told me about passion plus vulnerability plus commitment, he meets with people and says, I've been building your leadership, here on or whatever, and he renews his commitments. Again, it's a little bit much, but even if you did it at, that January of the year, what am I really committed to? Do I want to keep that going? Is it still working? And know what you're not committed to, what you say no to, thinking your time, your energy, your money. So Bianca Gates, who, get this, scales lean in circles in California, not that I use, but she's Bianca for a few minutes, and you see that she is more productive than most people. I often say, how do you do it? Like, how are you up with so much stuff? How are you handling all of these regional circles in this case? And she ruthlessly prioritizes. Okay. Then someone will say, what if I have all these other demands? You have this help or whatever they say. Well, then you have to ruthlessly prioritize even more. Basically, you cut that down. And so it's not, don't say, it's hard to say no. People feel like they have to give excuse. And you also don't burn bridges. The biggest piece of advice I got was don't burn bridges. Tell them when you're leaving, don't set a match and burn the place down. Like, oh, I'm done with you. So terms, the world. So good terms with people, and it says play nice with everybody. So be willing when it's negative, brings you not reciprocal, and which is litigiously savvy and protect yourself. I can do it. I don't have to do it. I'm like, I just have my picture. It's working fine. Most of that, but be savvy about that. Okay. All right. Combine all of those three elements. Love, as passion, vulnerability, and commitment. So PVC pipes and relationships using these concepts, I will change the world, the field of public health, and all of us forward, because these things are not happening. Passion and commitment are not transferred as far as I can tell. So I would encourage you to think about it and use the resources on this page if it's useful. They're books, and I left health heroes, because I think we need heroes. I would add doctors. Are people familiar with interrupters in Chicago? I forgot. So there are people who are interrupting basically crime in Chicago. Comment about that. So one, get in touch with me, and email, set up a meeting. If there's any way I can help you, video chat. Also send me your public health hero, because I kind of want to know who they are. So when I meet people, I can say, did you know this cool work is happening here? So proceed and be bold, and I'd add proceed, be bold, and really. So I can't think of. Okay, one more question for you. So, your attention and participating was helpful to you. Did you get maybe? Okay. Email is on at the very top. You're welcome down. I know people, but also eager to support you once I know what your plan is, what your commitments are. Stuff, and don't you. All right. Thank you for your time.
Appreciate it, and thank you, Linda. Give her one more round of applause for everyone heads out. Thank you. The day we'll be sending out brief evaluations just to get some talk about the series, and if you have any suggestions for future events. So have a good rest of your day.